Alright, it's recording.
Oh, we're recording, okay. Alright, so we're all ready? Okay, and I wonder if we should shut that door from a noise point of view. Just a minute.
Zoom's writing on your face.
What's that?
It zooms
Well,
writing.
Alright, so we'll start.
Got two.
Now, Mickey, should I just stand in one spot, or are you able to move with me?
I can move to a point. Yeah, I can move.
Can you see the board? What is going to be right?
Can't really read the writing.
It's fine. It's pretty. Until we need to take notes. Don't worry about taking notes. All right, let's start. Good morning, everyone. My name is Louise O'Shea, and I'm. Right, start again. Sorry. Right, start one more time. Good morning, everyone. My name is Louise O'Shea. I'm a registered nurse, and I've been contracted by the organisation to implement no lifting policy in your organisation, and also to put in a structure and a process so that you can solve manual handling at the local level. Okay. This whole program is coming from the board. At St John of God, we really want to standardise what's happening right across all the St John of God sites, and we really want to actually control the risks associated with manual handling. It would be our biggest hazard in this organisation. Now, what I'm going to do is just tell you about how this process is actually going to occur and what we're trying to achieve with this. Okay. What we have in health is the manual handling risks are two groups of tasks that we have problems with: the handling of people and the handling of materials. Now, the handling of people, what we've done is we've actually divided those tasks up into two subgroups, which is what we call generic people handling tasks and non-generic people handling tasks. Now, generic people handling tasks are those tasks that are done all day, every day in health. They're things like moving someone up a bed, sitting them up, lying them down, rolling them, or turning them to reposition them. Getting them out of bed, getting them back to bed, going from chair to chair, off the floor if they fall, or onto stretchers. Right, they're generic, they're done in every single hospital, they're done in every single nursing home, they're even done in the home. The other set of procedures or patient handling procedures that we have are what we call non-generic, and they are specific to the work area. So for example, you have in say angio, in particular areas. So look, for example, if we were working in operating theatre, we would be holding the limb to actually prep it. That's a non-generic people handling hazard. Or we'd be going from supine to prone. In some of the wards upstairs, we would be having problems with dressing and undressing people, putting on TED stockings. In DPU and your area, angio and endo, you have that issue with ERCP where you've got to put people into a swimming position or actually pressing into the tummy to actually help guide the scope through. Right. If we worked in orthopaedics, we'd be getting the hips out of bed. If we worked in the emergency department, we'd be getting people out of cars in the emergency. So these are peculiar tasks that are just specific to that work area, but they're still hazardous. The third group of tasks we're going to worry about is what we call materials handling, and they're things like moving the beds or the trolleys, pushing the wheelchairs when you've got a bariatric patient in it, lifting up the backrest with the gas assist back. It's things like the linen bags, the Baxter boxes. It's your monitors in ICU where you're moving them from A to B, that sort of stuff. All right, materials handling that again is going to contribute to injury. Now, the way that we're approaching this, with our generic patient handling procedures, we've got those safe work practices organised. And what we do is we divide the patient up into what we categorise as able to assist or not able to assist. Now, if they're able to assist, they've got to meet particular criteria. And if they meet that criteria, then we say it's a one-person task, and we'll use equipment to facilitate their independence, to move themselves. If they don't meet that criteria, they're termed not able to assist, and those people will be moved with equipment and staff numbers. All right? The heavier or the larger or the more difficult the person, the more staff we will need to actually help move that patient. Now, the criteria for able to assist and not able to assist for on-bed tasks comprehend and cooperate, and manoeuvre body on bed. So when we say to Jack, Jack, can you bend up your knee for me, put your arm across your chest and help pull yourself over, and he can follow those instructions and do it reasonably well, then we say, okay, he's able to assist. If he can't, not able to assist. Off bed, you've got to be able to comprehend and cooperate. You've got to be able to stand unsupported. They've got to be able to maintain their own balance. They can have an aid, just not us, and no history of unexpected falls. Now, that unexpected falls means not because they've had an operation the day before, a diabetic crisis or something like that. It means that they just fall for no reason. And if they meet that criteria, we have no problems, that's fine, they're meeting that criteria. We put them in the able to assist, and we will get them out of bed with the bed and the chair mechanics and things like that. When they don't meet that criteria, it's going to be a hoist transfers. Great, and that's our able to assist. That information will be put on a form, and we're saying to you guys that you must use that assessment, that criteria, to assess your patients every time you move them. Don't rely on any other assessment, even if it's the physio or the OT or your colleagues. Go back to that criteria and reassess the patient yourself. The issue with the patient is that it is alive, and the assessment is only as good as it was done at that moment in time. The assessment's 3 hours old. The patient may have changed in that 3 hours. Now, the non-generic tasks, what we've got to do is we're going through a process at the present time of identifying all those odd tasks that you do in your workplace that are not done anywhere else. And it's the same with the materials. Some of those materials handling issues will be in every single unit, and some of them will only be specific to your unit. So again, what we've got to do is identify all those materials handling issues that are just specific to your work area. And then what we're going to do is develop a table, and that will go back to your work area to be resolved, sorted out with health and safety as well involved in that. Okay, so just going through that again, generic people handling, non-generic people handling, which are tasks peculiar to your work area, and then we've got our materials handling. Now what the health and safety legislation basically says, and it says this right across Australia, is that what management have got to do is identify the problem, assess the risk of that problem, and then control that problem by either eliminating the risk or reducing it to as low a level as possible. And St John of God are committed to that. It's not going to happen, everything's not going to be solved tomorrow, but we're now on our way with this process. Okay. Now, once we've actually identified our solutions for the problems that you guys have, the manual handling risks that you have in the workplace, and we've come up with the most reasonable solution, what we do then is we write what is called a safe operating procedure or a safe work practice. And those procedures, including the generic and your non-generic and your materials, have to then be injected into your unit. So they become the way we do it around here. So if I'm working in DPU, this is the way we do it at DPU. And the way we do it in DPU at Murdoch will be exactly the same as the way we do it in Geraldton or Bunbury or Ballarat or Bendigo or Butcherong. So they're our safe work practices, or our SOPs, safe operating procedures, and they've got to be injected into that particular unit. Now St John of God have also employed a manual task systems coordinator, and that person will be the person that actually coordinates this whole process. But the management of these tasks, or the use of these tasks, will occur at that local level. So it's the unit manager that is responsible to make sure that you guys are compliant with those procedures, and you know you're confident in those procedures. So they're the two things that we want to know. We'll develop those SOPs for you, the safe work practices. We'll help you set up the business case to management to get equipment and things like that. Once those SOPs are done, it's an absolute expectation that you will follow those safe operating procedures. It's a two-way street. Management have to sort them out, but the employee under legislation has to comply with that. So those SOPs go into that unit, and this is part of this process at the moment. We're training up a group of champions per unit. I think it's one champion per 10 staff, so you've got a lot of support at that local level. Those champions will be under the leadership and the support of the unit manager, but basically the actual responsibility lies with that manager of that unit. Now the manager actually has to provide key performance indicators, KPIs, to the manual tasks system coordinator, who will then provide those KPIs up to executive manager at DMC, who will then report that to the board. So this is where we're at the moment. We're setting up our champions in the work unit. We're training up all our staff, and what we'll be doing then is tying this program down through our competency, so you'll be all assessed for competency in these procedures. We'll be monitoring compliance at the local level, where you guys will actually be monitoring compliance, not in a policing type way, but to actually identify why people can't comply, and then we need to sort that out. And also we're saying that the equipment has to be sorted out at the local level, and this is your gear, so you have to sort that out. So we have 3 portfolios at this local level, and the champions will be allocated a particular portfolio. If you need more training to achieve competence, we're happy to give that. We want you to know what you're doing, because there's nothing worse. We're not dealing with boxes, we're dealing with real people. In relation to the compliance monitoring, that will be done at the local level. The champions won't be monitoring compliance, they'll be organising compliance monitoring, and you guys will all be involved. So you'll get a memo sent to you, and it will tell you, identify the days that you're actually monitoring. We like to monitor very frequently when a new procedure is put into a workplace. We have to monitor on every shift for every procedure when it's new. Once the procedure has been in for a while and people know it, then we can back off that monitoring. If we see non-compliance, we then up the compliance monitoring again. Now the champion who's in charge of this will write you an email. We're more interested in why rather than who. The unit manager will be interested in who. Okay. There's certainly a policy in relation to this, and it's certainly disciplinary action if people are willfully non-compliant. In relation to the equipment, I know your storerooms are absolutely jam-packed and there's not a huge amount of space. What we're saying is you've got to have access to this equipment. It's got to be easier access. If it's not, if you have to pull out half the gear to get access to a hoist, you still have to use the hoist. So it's much better to have this sorted out at the local level. So we really need to be probably reasonably ruthless in what goes into that storeroom. See if we can actually take things out of there. How it's cleaned is sorted out at the local level, your access to it, and its maintenance is really a key thing too. If your wheels don't turn, we've got carpet on the floor here, it picks up dirt and hair very much into every wheeled piece of equipment that you have. We've got to have very, very frequent maintenance of wheels to make sure that it keeps wheeling, so you're not having to wheel backwards or just to get the thing going. Alright. So just going over that again, we have our hazards, which are people and materials. With people, we've got our generic and non-generic procedures. Today we learn about our generic procedures. We have a risk assessment form that we assess the patient into able to assist or not able to assist. We've got to get our safe operating procedures for our non-generic and our materials. We're going to then put those safe operating procedures into the unit, and we're at that first stage with our generic at the present time. Expectation that you'll comply with those procedures. If you can't, whatever you do, don't do the task, just get back to your manager for further direction. Alright, don't get sucked into thinking that it's okay to take shortcuts and things like that. This is pretty serious, it's health and safety, so it's very serious. Go to your champions if you need any support whatsoever. Go to your unit manager for support as well. Okay, we're saying that people must be competent, so if you need further training, come back to us. You have to be compliant and you'll be involved in that process of actually monitoring. And we want to make sure that we've got access to our equipment, things like that.